Hello everybody, it's Joel and welcome to That One Project, which today is going to be performing a compression test on my abandoned and currently being rescued 1985 Escort wagon. Now this old girl has got the 1.6 liter 2-barrel carbureted inline 4, which is, from my understanding, was a decent engine. However, I can't say the same about the carbureted aspect. This thingy-majigger here in the middle that supplies the boom boom liquid to the boom boom areas is kind of crap and is giving a really rich air to fuel ratio, which is making the engine run horribly. It still pops off and runs great. As I said, this is a rescue car. It was sitting in a backyard for about 20 years and it's been brought back to life, but it's currently trying to die again from a mixture of horrible carburetor, a bunch of vacuum leaks, and there's a whole bunch of other problems. I am afraid that worst case scenario, that might be a cracked head, cracked block, or a head gasket that is no longer gasketing. So the first step here is going to be using a good old compression tester that I'm borrowing from a buddy to go ahead and run a compression test on every single one of the 4 little puny cylinders that this 1.6 liter engine's got by removing our quite pretty brand new spark plug cables. I've got new spark plugs too, but they aren't installed yet. Get these guys out of here. We don't need them for the moment. And then let's get a spark plug socket and get all of these nasty, crusty little things out of here. Only the finest of very dirty DeWalt sockets for this old car. And I think I need a longer extension. There we go. Get that down in there. Goodness. Wow, I got those quite tight last time. And I did get new plugs for this. You can tell these are not in incredible shape. If I can, okay, forget it, we'll show you on here. You can see the ends have quite a bit of carbon on them. They're not too bad, but they're also not too good. As I said, they got a bunch of crap on them, and overall they're just disgusting. If I can get this, there we go. I cleaned them up last time I had them out, but if the camera would focus, yeah, they're not bad, but they're far from good or even decent. So those are little Sparky guys, good old made in USA. I'm not sure what brand these are, aside from, well, that they're made in the USA. But you can definitely tell that it would appear our first 3 cylinders, especially our first one, is running really rich. You can tell by our ends being freakishly black, and there's actually what looks like a bit of anti-seize on the threads, which is I guess there's not a problem with doing that. I haven't done it before. And the areas that said plugs came from doesn't look much better. It's pretty gross, and I think there's something burning off the inside of this exhaust manifold cover, because if I get a good old stick, you can see some wet stuff down in there. It's pretty gross, but for whatever reason, and it's kind of worrying, but there is a lot of pretty gross stuff coming out of there. And it doesn't really, it smells really bad. It doesn't smell like motor oil. I think there's just a lot of crap that's been boiling off. However, I don't know, because it's still liquid and the engine hasn't ran for a while. And you know, we got some good old leakage from the good old carburetor, so that's all good. Anywho, so now that we've got all the plugs out, let's go ahead and whip out our borrowed compression tester and give the engine a couple whirls and see what we see. And in case you don't know, the way to determine a thread pitch is by getting the threads of both of your things, the new and the old, whether that's hardware, and just kind of holding up to each other. And if they kind of link in like that, given this is kind of a crude and gross example, but there you can see they're kind of meshing together. that means that this is the right adapter. Because when examining threads, if it looks right, it is right. Here we go. Get that guy down in there. And mostly tight. And then our gauge is kind of like an air fitting. Get that on there. So here's where you guys come in. You're going to tell me what you see on this little gauge. I'll try to position that so you guys can see it. Right there seems good. And let's go ahead and give the good old motor here a couple turnovers. That is good. That's actually really high compression. I probably should have stuck you guys a little bit closer, my bad. Let's get this guy out of here and work down towards cylinder number 1. There we go. That makes me pretty happy that we've got consistent compression between all 4 cylinders. So if you were watching this as a tutorial, which you probably weren't, but if you were, I hope it helped. And if you weren't, then I hope you enjoyed, or maybe it helped, I don't know. Anywho, so there's how to do a compression test. And at this point, if you're using this as a tutorial, you kind of just reverse your steps. Go ahead and throw in your plugs. I'm going to throw in my new ones, and since I've got them, and then put your good old very fancy blue, maybe they're not blue, but your good old Sparky-Doo cables back on. And as you can see here, I don't know if I had mentioned this earlier or not, but this is the good old 2-barrel carburetor that kind of fuels this little pipsqueak of an engine. But I had very crudely rebuilt this carburetor as for the first time, my first time rebuilding a carburetor ever. And I don't know if I cleaned the right things, I don't know if I didn't clean the right things, and I didn't even replace any gaskets really. All I replaced was the gasket between the top half of the housing and the bottom half. So ultimately, I don't know if I did it right, did it wrong. I don't know if I messed it up so much that now the choke linkage doesn't work right. But as you can see here, there's a zip tie holding the top end choke closed so that these little butterflies aren't open, because there's so many vacuum leaks around that if the carburetor is giving the engine the correct amount of fuel, it just bogs it out immediately and just dies. But it is an original Motorcraft carburetor, as you can see there, part number and whatnot in case you're interested. But I've got a new carburetor and a whole bunch of other stuff like a head gasket, because I thought, and I still don't know if I'm going to have to do that, but as goes the project car, there's a bunch of parts in the back. Actually pretty clean though. I try to keep the car clean. But here's a head gasket kit with all the gaskets, new studs, bolts, whatever you want to call them, and stuff in there. There's the box for the new cables, and there's some other stuff back there. And here's a seat for my 96 Jeep Cherokee. So yeah, anywho, now that we've got all the plugs and stuff back in, just so that you guys can see it running here in the first video on this channel, I'll go ahead and put you guys back on the tripod and give you guys a little show, because when it's cold, this engine runs pretty good, but we'll see. And since I said that, the car's probably going to act up and not want to do anything now. Here goes nothing. So yeah, when she's cold, she runs pretty good. Not running great, but she runs. And here's what led me to perform this compression test in the first place. You got a fair bit of white smoke coming out the back. It looks worse on the camera because this camera's a pile of crap, but there you go. Kind of blubbing a little bit, not running too great. But there's not a lot of smoke coming out, but there's definitely some coming out. It's not too awfully bad. You can hear all of the vacuum leaks going on in there. There's quite a couple. Like I can tap one just by reaching right here. and it'll kind of pick up a little bit, and then blow it back down if I take the finger off. But overall, she runs, which is why I am still putting effort into the car. Alright, so what I ended up doing was throwing the plugs back in and then running it and just letting it idle for about 15 minutes. And the goal in that was to get the engine as warm as possible and get it up to idling temperature. Which, I'm not going to say too many good words because, you know, the car can hear me and it'll throw curveballs at me whenever it wants. But it ran smooth for that period of time, and after that period of it running, which is actually the longest I've ran it since I've gotten the car running, you know, since it was taking its 18 year nap, and it handled it pretty well. It didn't bog too much. I gave it some gas at one point, and I really didn't like that because the carburetor is just horrible and is really not doing a good job at its job. But ultimately, the end goal in running it after putting the plugs back in was to do another compression test, of which I just repeated the same process as before I had ran it. And before, all of the cylinders were between kind of 140, 150-ish, more like 145, 150-ish, but it's in the high 40s to low 50s, which is good. They will have relatively equal, very consistent compression, which is great. But what I was afraid of was the head being warped or something like that, and the engine not handling the heat very well, leading to a loss of compression while it was building heat, and maybe the head was moving or the head gasket just wasn't handling the heat. My concern was that something was letting the compression go down while it was running and warming up. But after I repeated the compression test on all 4 cylinders, they're all between 128, so the high 20s into kind of the very low 30s, between 128, 130, which is, as far as I'm concerned, good, at least because they're all consistent. I don't know if the compression is just normally a bit lower after the engine's warm and has been idling at operating temperature, but considering all 4 cylinders were consistent and within just maybe 1 psi of each other, I'm going to say that they're good, because I don't have any reason to say that they're not. There is that little video on performing a couple of compression checks on my abandoned and rescued 1985 Escort wagon. Just a little introduction to this little project thing that I'm trying to do on YouTube. I've previously been doing YouTube videos for about 10 years, and I'm trying to get back into it, and I thought the best way is to just start filming little projects like this, and who knows, maybe someone will like this old little car. I've been doing a lot of stuff, so even before getting these videos going, obviously. And with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, you know all the different things that you can do to support the channel. And I've got my project here that I'm going to continue working on, but if you don't already have a project of your own, well, you better go find one. They're pretty fun to work on and tinker with. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.